Responding to some comments on my video titled How to Get Started Bounce House Business. The comments were, how much profit can I earn in this business? What about insurance? And do you have a waiver for liability? Let's talk about profit. My experience is the bounce house business is highly profitable. And let's do an example with a water slide. So of course, this is all about getting started. So we're not big yet, you know. So assuming you start with a water slide. Now, water slides are popular in Florida. And so 8 months out of the year, I can rent that out as a water slide and 4 months as a dry slide. So the water slide costs $2,000. I can rent it out for $200. Best case scenario, I can rent it out twice a week for 5 weeks and I would earn back my $2,000. Not best case scenario, but in a normal case scenario, it would take me 2 months. I can rent it out for 2 months and I would earn back my $2,000. Now, I have had water slides for 2 years, 3 years, or 3 years, and then sell them after 3 years for half what I paid for it. So you buy it for $2,000, rent it out for 3 years, and then sell it for $1,000. So the real cost of having the water slide is $1,000. And I can earn $1,000 after 5 rentals. So, and everything else is profit, So that's just when you have one water slide. Let's say now you get one, you get back your $2,000, everything is profit. Let's say you have 2, right? Then it would take you half the time to earn the amount to pay for another one. Let's say you have 10 water slides and you book out all 10 of them, or you have 5 of them and you book out them twice for the week, Saturday and Sunday. So now you have 10 bookings, you have 5 water slides, and you use all the money that you earn to buy another one, So then if you have 10 of them, it's very easy to earn. If you have, say, okay, I have 10 of them now, things are going great, whoever, I can rent out more because I have more customers. Then you can easily, in one weekend, earn the money to buy another one. So the more of them you have, it's easier to acquire more if you have the customers. So as far as this business being profitable, as long as you have the customers, and you're willing to do the work as far as going out and delivering them, it's very profitable. So we have gotten to the point where just between the 2 of us, we've had 20 units, and we can manage that without an employee. Now, we did get to the point where we had employees, and even with an employee, it's still very profitable. However, dealing with employees is not as fruitful as dealing with the customers yourselves. An employee isn't going to set it up perfect like I would set it up perfect. And so there's a level of stress that comes along with having employees. Plus, if I'm just sitting at home and the employee's doing all the work, then I don't deserve, I don't deserve to earn, it's just like, we prefer to get it done without having employees. But even with an employee, it's still profitable, right? So we reached a point where we said, there's only so much time that you can put in where it becomes to be too much. So I've seen whereas companies who have like 4 employees and 40 units. So now you're dealing with a lot of employees, you're dealing with a lot of customers, you're dealing with a lot of units, and you have to manage them. It becomes like every day, that's what you're doing. There's no break. You have a warehouse because now you have so many units, you need storage. You have a warehouse. You probably have a couple of vehicles. Vehicles break down, flat tires. It's like there's no way you're going to run this business without having 2 or 3 problems every week. And so it becomes a situation where I wouldn't think of that as a fun business to have. And it's not worth it because, whereas just the 2 of us can deliver 20 deliveries on a weekend. And how much is that? $4,000, right? So just the 2 of us without any stress or employees and dealing with customers ourselves, means that we're going to earn 4 grand. Now we can do 40 deliveries and have a couple of employees and a couple of vehicles, and then we have a warehouse. So now you have more expenses, more things to deal with, and I could end up only earning 5 grand in profit. So it's either I get no employees and earn 4 grand profit, or have a whole bunch of employees and all this stuff to deal with and earn 5 grand profit. An extra $1,000 isn't worth the amount of time and effort and stress I have to put into dealing with way more. So I have come to the conclusion that with the bounce house business, less is more. There comes a point where you have to be satisfied because you have a limited amount of time, to deal with this stuff. And considering the amount of time it takes to deal with this stuff, it's best to find a limit and say, this is the limit, this is where I'm going to take it. And then after this, at this point is where I am most efficient and I earn the most profit. Because yes, I could be doing $10,000 weekends instead of $4,000 weekends. But out of that $10,000 weekend, my profit is probably 6 grand, and then I have to spend 4 grand on a flat tire, paying employees. Another problem. It's really like problems start to happen, and you have to spend time and effort and stress dealing with those problems. And in fact, the likelihood of the problems being really, really big, is more likely than if it's just me and one other person, and we're not stressed out. We know our limit. We're not trying to do more than we can. We're perfectly okay with turning down someone for something because we are at our limit. So at some point, I'm ranting on this because it's a big topic with me. So when it comes to profit, right? Next, I spend too much time on profit. But as you can see, bounce house business is very profitable, right? Insurance. We've had insurance because we want to do parks, deal with schools. We started getting calls from schools and a lot of people who wanted to deliver to parks. And so we got insurance for a year. It was $1,500 for the year, and it was $1 million insurance policy. After that, we decided that we don't want to do parks and we don't want to do public events. Number one, dealing with customers who use parks, it's always very complicated. It's kind of stressful. It doesn't 8 times out of 10, a park delivery doesn't go smooth. It's like, for whatever reason, it's always there's something wrong, right? And dealing with public events like, festivals and schools, there's also an issue there with getting paid the way we're used to getting paid. We have to chase down this person and that person. It's just like these when we compare our experience with parks, public events, festivals, versus dealing with residential customers, it's night and day, right? So after a year of doing that, we decided, okay, no, we're not going to do parks and public events. We're going to stick to residential, for which we don't need to have insurance, right? So that answers that question about insurance. Liability. We have a waiver that we text to the customer. It's done online. They check the box, they read everything, and it's all done online. All the information is stored online. That's a company called Smart Waiver. We pay a monthly fee, and they handle that. It's very smooth. It's very technological. It's great, and it covers. The one thing that our waiver has helped us with is, in the waiver it says that if we put a stake in the ground and hit a pipe, we're not responsible. Many years ago, we had that problem and we didn't have that on the waiver because we were using paper back then, and that wasn't on the waiver. And not only was that was a negative experience with the customer, but I think we also had to paid for the problem. So on our current waiver, which we have just like 6 weeks ago or something like that, we did hit a pipe under the ground. Water came spurting out, and of course on the waiver it says The customer is responsible for knowing where pipes are under the ground. No, we can't know that, you know. So if something happens, you know, and so it wasn't a big problem because the customer was aware of it being on the waiver and they read it before it happened. So it wasn't a big deal. They were still very happy, right? What else? And in fact, you know, they're the ones who told us where to put the unit, and they were adamant about where to put it. And there was like a pipe that, you know, wasn't like a, it was just like a pipe that was installed after the fact, you know, like a home installation or something like that, like some person, not an official plumbing company. It's like a pipe that was added or something like that. So it was kind of like in a weird spot. So what else? So that's it. You know, I talked about the waiver for liability, and the waiver covers a lot of stuff, issues that can come up doing this business. But the only thing that's ever came up for us was pipes. You know, pipes under the ground. What else? Expenses. I talked about profit, but I didn't mention the expenses like fuel cost. But it's not that much. You know, we have a 6-cylinder SUV, so on a very busy weekend, we might fill up twice, and it costs $40 to fill it up. So that's not really a big expense. Other cost is advertising. Advertising only becomes an expense when business gets slow. I crank up the advertising. When business is busy and we have too many customers, I stop the advertising and I'm not paying any advertising. So advertising is an expense, and it seems like a big expense because when I start spending a lot on advertising is when we don't have much business. So it's like, man, I gotta spend all this money, you know. But you know, it's still not a big deal. In fact, spending on advertising makes a big difference in being able to grow the business. And I'm seeing that now because in the past, whereas we had lots of customers and we're earning lots of profit. In addition to that, with the bounce house business, I was earning money on the internet. For instance, I have another YouTube channel with millions of views. That channel used to earn about $1,000 a month as far as just from the views on the videos. I even got to a point where the most popular video on that channel, after having it for like 2 years, you know, being very popular, earns tons of money, I sold the rights to it for $5,000 for one video, you know. So that's a good example of earning money online in addition to earning with the bounce house business, whereas I was able to crank a lot of money into advertising and build the business. Currently, that's not the case because our main source of income is the bounce house business. And a lot of the money that I would be using for advertising, or I could be using for advertising to build it up and make it bigger much faster, I'm having to use to pay bills, you know, pay regular bills, rent, food, and all that stuff, kids in school. So, and it's like, you know, spending money on advertising, in my opinion, is a risk, you know, because you can spend it and not, I mean, it hasn't happened, you know, it didn't happen before, you know, basically I did get back from spending on it, but being that we need the money to pay the bills, you know, I can't risk the bill money on advertising unless I'm 100% sure I'm guaranteed to see the results, whereas there's no way to know, you know, I'm not sure I'm going to see the results, so I'm not willing to risk it. So right now there's a really big balance going on, whereas I have to balance the amount I spend on advertising versus paying the bills. So the business is like, you know, growing at a normal pace. I remember like when I used Facebook advertising, right? And I was spending about like, you know, $100 a week on it. And this was years ago. And Facebook contacted me and they wanted to, you know, they wanted to coach me, you know, on using Facebook ads. And they said, we're going to put you on with a guy and he's going to do a 1-hour session with you for 7 days. But in order for us to do that, you have to dedicate $2,000 to spend on advertising for that month. So whereas I've never spent that much on advertising, they're telling me spend this much and you won't regret it. Spend this much, deal with our guy, and they were right, man. I said, okay, let's do it. I dedicated the $500 a week to advertising on Facebook. Plus, the guy, dealt with me on the phone, told me all the ins and outs, and sure enough, it was worth it. In fact, after that, I didn't even need to advertise that much anymore because we had so many customers and so much business. And I'm remembering that. And currently, I haven't done anything like that, and I'm scared. I'm scared because that's a lot of money. But so it's all about, advertising is interesting because if you're willing to risk it, you could really end up in a really good position. And I'm kind of like talking myself into that right now, but maybe I don't know. I don't know. So I just want to talk about expenses and advertising being the most interesting one, and of course random stuff and fuel cost. But even with all that, bounce house business is very profitable, and all you need is customers, more customers. Now there is competition, but I don't think about or worry about competition. I just focus on what I'm doing, and in fact, I think there's way more customers no matter how much competition there is. Um, it's all about who's reaching the customers, who's treating them good, and I think we do a very good job at that.